Hi, I'm Claire and this is a massive book haul. I think it's probably the biggest that I've ever done on this channel. I've got about 25 books to tell you about. I am not sure how they piled up so quickly, but without further ado, let's get started because this is going to be a long one. Let's start with books that I was lucky enough to pick up for free at events that I went to earlier this year. First up, I was invited to the Kitschies Awards ceremonies. The Kitschies are an award for smart and progressive literature with a speculative element to it. This year the finalists included books that I already had, like Circe by Madeline Miller, also Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi, but there were also a bunch of books that I didn't have that they were giving away to the people attending the event. First up, I've got Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, which has been extremely buzzy this year. And the back of this edition that I have just says, "They killed my mother, they took our magic, they tried to bury us, now we rise." That sounds pretty good to me. I've heard a lot of things about this, kinda mixed, but I'm eager to check it out. And it is also a finalist for the Lodestar Award for Best YA Book, which is going to be given out at the same time as the Hugos, so very exciting. I've also got The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, and this is another one that I've been anticipating since way before it came out. Again, a big chunky fantasy novel that's a debut that's been widely acclaimed, that people have been talking about. I don't know when I'm gonna find time to read these enormous books in between all the other award reading that I'm doing, but I am looking forward to whenever that time is. And this one is set in a fantasy world. It's about a girl from a relatively poor background who aces this test to go into the government or like civil service basically, and like she is then taken into the upper echelons of society to this like training academy. It sounds like it's got a little bit of boarding school goodness to it, but at the same time it's about like spying and trying to uproot the system from within and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I again have been looking forward to this since it was first announced, since before it came out. I also picked up Semiosis by Sue Burke, which I hadn't heard about before the Kitschies, but it's got a quote from Adrian Tchaikovsky in the front and a Mira Grant quote in the back. Both of those like authors giving quotes makes me think that this is the kind of like sci-fi, adventure-y, slightly horror-y, oh no, the future is in fact terrifying sort of book that I'm going to really enjoy. It says on the cover, sentience takes many forms, and it is about a group of settlers who escape conflict on Earth to resettle on a empty quote-unquote planet, except they discover that the plant life on that planet is smart enough to be sentient, and then they have to like bargain with that. I'm really into alien creatures that are genuinely weird and alien and not just like a humanoid Martian with blue or green skin or something like that. Like, I really enjoy the idea of smart, dangerous, scaly plants. And finally, I've got The Book of Joan by Lydia Yuknavitch. I had not heard of this book or this author, but it has a quote from Jeff Vandermeer in the back as well as Roxane Gay, so that seems very interesting to me. This one was up for the Inky Tentacle, which is the Kitschies Award for Best Cover, and the cover design is by Rafaela Somaya with illustrations by Florian Schumer and debut art. I really love this cover. I find it really intriguing. Like, I want to know what this book is about. I actually have no idea what this book is about. We're going to find out together.
12 seconds later.
Well, I should have guessed that from the title. It's a Joan of Arc retelling, so it's a future ravaged by war and there is a rebellion forming around a woman called Joan, and I don't really know much more about that because the flap isn't telling me much more about that, and I feel like that's fine. I don't mind every once in a while going into a book not knowing very much at all about it. Next up, I've got a few books that I picked up at Eastercon. Tor Books was throwing a party, and at that party they were giving away some books as well as selling some other books, so it got a little bit of both. First up, I was super excited to grab a copy of A Memory Called Empire by R.K.D. Martin. I have been waiting for this book for such a long time, and now I have it in the house, and I've had it in the house since like Easter, because Eastercon, and I haven't been able to start it yet because so much award reading, but I cannot wait. This gave me such Imperial Ratch vibe when it was first announced. This is a science fiction novel about an ambassador who travels to a faraway planet to take up their post, and when they get there they discover that their predecessor was murdered, or like died suspiciously, but they have to figure out if it was a murder or not and who done it so that they don't get also murdered. I just can't wait. Next, I picked up a copy of The True Queen by Zen Cho. I bought this so I could have it signed by Zen Cho, who was at Eastercon. She signed it and also gave me a little like adorable stamp of a serpent and a crown to like, I guess, go with the cover, and it was amazing. Such a great signing experience. She was very, very nice. So this is The True Queen. It is a sequel of sorts to Zen Cho's debut novel Sorcerer to the Crown, which came out a couple of years ago, I think, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's a kind of fantasy of manners, regency, but with magic, a universe. And in the first book we follow the Sorcerer Royal, who is in charge of all the magic in the land, as well as a woman who's not supposed to be doing magic, but is very, very powerful at magic, and they kind of investigate together why there is less and less and less magic in England. Now, this book is about two separate characters, but it is in the same world, and they interact with Zacharias and Prunella, the main characters from the first book. It is about two sisters. I think one of them gets cursed and they have to go to England to get help from Zacharias and Prunella. To be honest, it could be anything written by Zen Cho and I would still be super eager to pick it up. After that, I picked up The Collapsing Empire and The Consuming Fire in paperback because I really enjoy the UK paperback editions of these books by John Scalzi. I listened to both of these on audiobook when they first came out. I didn't have copies of them, but Scalzi was a guest of honor at Eastercon and I wanted to have some books to get signed, so there you go. I don't know if you can see, but there is a signature in there. I only asked him to sign one of them because he was very, very busy. In case you haven't heard me raving about The Collapsing Empire and the Interdependency series, this is a sci-fi series set in a universe where planets are linked together by something called the flow. It allows interplanetary travel, and the thing that really kickstarts this series is that a scientist discovers that the flow is collapsing, and soon all of these planets that rely on each other for trades of various goods and that can't like sustain themselves on their own, soon they're going to be completely cut off from one another and they're not going to be able to survive that. And we follow a bunch of characters, including some scions from the trading families, as well as the scientist who is making all these discoveries, and the emperor of the Interdependency, who is trying to keep everything together. I absolutely love this series. I am really, really glad that I have physical copies of these because these are books that I'm gonna want to keep and probably reread. They are really, really fun. Next up, I've got some books that I bought for myself. I've got Space Opera by Catherine M. Valenti, which I got because it is a Hugo Award finalist this year. This is the one that's like Eurovision in space, and Earth gets discovered by aliens, and aliens tell the humans of Earth, hey, we've discovered you now and we have to decide whether you are people or not, and if you know, don't count as people, we're going to murder you all. And the way to like qualify as a people is to take part in Space Eurovision and not come last. I am like halfway through reading this and it is fun, but it's very wordy and it's a bit slow to get through, but you know, I'm gonna be reading it for the Hugos, so I'll talk more about this when I'm done with it. I've also got the bind up of Binti by Nadia Corafor. This contains all three novellas, Binti, Binti Home, and Binti Night Masquerade, as well as a new story called Binti Sacred Fire. And basically I'm rereading this for the Hugos. I read Binti when it first came out, but I haven't actually caught up with Home and Night Masquerade, so I'm really, really excited to have this gorgeous, gorgeous bind up because I didn't own any of the other books in physical form. And this, if you haven't heard me or everybody else on BookTube raving about it, is a series about a girl called Binti, who is the first of her people, the Himba tribe, to be invited to the very prestigious Umza University, which is on a whole other planet. But the Himba people have never left Earth, and they are very much like attached to the land, and it's not okay for her to leave. But she does anyway because she wants to learn, and she's a math genius, and she wants to go and like get an education for herself. The problem is when she is on the spaceship on her way to Umza University, there is a run-in with some aliens and a bunch of violence happens, and then I'll let you find out when you read it what happens next. But it's about language and culture and home, and it's just a really, really great series. I'm really excited to be rereading this. Next up, I've got Dragon Pearl by Yoon-Ha Lee. This is a middle grade sci-fi novel, and it's about a girl who investigates the reason why her brother went missing from the army. They are saying it's because he deserted, but she doesn't believe it, and so she uses her secret shape-shifting powers to go and find her brother. This is something that I've been anticipating for a long time because Yoon-Ha Lee is a writer that all my friends rave about, but I haven't actually read the Machineries of Empire series yet, which is his sci-fi series for adults, but it's fairly complicated and a bit daunting, so I picked up this middle grade novel hoping that it would be like a softer introduction to Yoon-Ha Lee's writing. But now I've got to read all 3 of the Machineries of Empire novels in the next 3 months for the Hugos, so I think I'm gonna end up reading this after Machineries of Empire. It doesn't really matter. I'm very, very excited for this book because I like a shapeshifter, and the kind of like a quest across space to figure out whether her brother actually deserted or not seems like a really, really fun time. Next up, I've got The Refrigerator Monologues by Catherine M. Valenti. This is a book about comic book women. This is a series of short stories about women in comic book universes that have been fridged, put in the refrigerator. If you don't know the term fridging, it originates from literary criticism specifically about comic books and the way that women in comic books are often written to have bad things happen to them in order to further the narrative storyline of male characters. So women being murdered and stuffed into fridges is the origin of the term specifically, but this is also about women who've been depowered or raped, as well as women who've been murdered, like the mothers and girlfriends and sisters of superheroes that like basically form their tragic backstories. As someone who really loves comics, but also, you know, women not being murdered to further male character storylines, I was really, really looking forward to this book when it first came out, and I just missed it at the time. I just didn't pick it up, and it's now been out for a couple of years, I think, and I saw it on sale and I thought, why not? Like, this is something that I've been wanting to pick up for a really long time. It's the kind of meta that I really enjoy, and I believe it's also illustrated. Yeah, it's got some illustrations by Annie Wu, so it's kind of black and white and in a comic book sort of style, shockingly enough. So yeah, this is a really small book that I'm hoping I can get to at some point, probably in the second half of the year. And it's always good to have shorter books to read. Now, The City in the Middle of the Night by Charlie Jane Anders is another one that I was massively anticipating earlier this year when it came out, and I was going to probably listen to the audiobook or pick up the ebook of it, and then Jean from Jean Bookish Thoughts actually hauled it, and hauled specifically this gorgeous naked hardback edition with silver foiling on it. This is the UK edition. I hadn't seen it before I saw Jean's video, and I was just like, oh, I gotta buy that now. Like, it's too pretty. So I went to Waterstones and I picked it up because it's too pretty. This is about a world that is tidally locked. This means that the way the planets and the moons are oriented, like basically there is a side of the planet that is always in darkness and a side that is always in daylight. And so there's this starkly different living conditions across various bits of the planet, and I believe our main character is exiled from the daylight side of the planet to the night side of the planet, where it's dark and cold, and it's expected that our protagonist is going to die, and then they don't. Now, here's one that I picked up technically to read for the Hugos, but really just because I wanted it, and that is Tolkien, Maker of Middle-earth by Catherine McIlwain. This is such a beautiful, gorgeous, like, giant art book. It was quite a luxury purchase. It is a bit of an expensive book, I'm gonna be honest. It's like £40 full price. In the UK, I had some money on my Waterstones card, so I did not pay full price for it. If you would like to see this book, but you don't want to spend £40 or whatever on it, and you are a voter for the Hugo Awards, I believe the whole PDF of this is in the Hugo voter packet. So I was really excited when I saw that like loads of people are going to be able to see this. This is up for the award for best art book this year, and this is a book about Tolkien and his life and his process. It's got a bunch of art like from Tolkien himself, like this drawing of the Lonely Mountain and Smaug, and a bunch of pictures and primary sources and all of that. Like, I haven't actually read this yet or spend much time looking at it, but I feel like this is going to be something that I sit down with and just spend a few hours paging through with a nice cup of tea in the evening sometime, and it's going to be chill and lovely. But yeah, if you want to have a look at it and you're a Hugo voter, you can do that for free in your Hugo voter packet. And if not, I'm sure you can go into an actual shop where they have it and just like look through it, because it's completely okay to do that, like in Waterstones, for instance. I promise I'm not sponsored by Waterstones, even though I've said it like 5 times. But do call me, please. I'm available for that. Next up, I've got a few books that were written by friends of mine. Firstly, Our Child of the Stars by Stephen Cox. This is a book that I've heard about in many stages of its development, because back when I was writing fiction, I was in a writing group with Stephen, and so to have this book actually existing in my hands out from a major SF publisher is really, really exciting. This is a, like, I guess historical science fiction, which now that I think of it, back when I first read The Calculating Stars, I did say that I wanted more historical sci-fi, so this is great for that. It's set in the US in the late 50s, early 60s, and we've got that background of the Vietnam War, the moon landing, Woodstock, and against that background, our main characters, Molly and Jean, who are a married couple, rescue a child from the wreckage of a meteor. So obviously our child of the stars like literally comes from a meteorite. And obviously they know that this child, having the history that it has, is going to attract a lot of attention, and they have to protect their family and try to keep everything together, even though there's a lot going on. The blurb on the front here says, "A lost child, the family who try to protect him, and a secret that won't stay hidden. Dun dun dun." Next up, I've got Not For Use in Navigation, 13 stories. That's a collection of short stories, obviously, by my friend Iona Dutt Sharma, and I have really, really enjoyed their short fiction. They've written a bunch of short stories, as well as some fanfic that I've really, really enjoyed, and so I'm really excited to get a collection from them. Like, this book is beautiful, beautiful as well. I haven't read this one yet, but in the back it says, "A refugee arrives from elsewhere in time, a generation ship makes landfall, a vast galactic empire settles to the business of government." And all 3 of these things sound pretty great to me. I do love some time travel, I love a generation ship story, I love a space bureaucracy story. Okay, so maybe it is a weird trope to be enjoying so much, but I know what I like, and I really like well done space red tape and bureaucracy. And I believe it is well done because I've heard from people who have read it and enjoyed it already, so can't wait. This also includes 4 previously unpublished folk tales and an introduction from the author. I've also got 2 comics written by my friend Nick Bryan. This first one here is The Little Death of Watson Tower. This was illustrated by Rosie Alexander. I absolutely adore this cover. It is so vibrant and beautiful. The back cover is also really, really cool. The inside pages are also really, really beautiful. They are in black and white, and I really, really enjoy the lettering in particular in this. I think it's done with like a brush pen. I don't know how well you can see, but I think it's just a really cool look that feels a bit unusual to me. I don't know that I've seen many comics that are lettered like that with brush pens, so this is really cool. This is a middle grade comic about a girl called Kelly and her friends. They are hanging around their tower block dressed as skeletons with like little skull masks and stuff, and then all of a sudden they have a run-in with the actual Grim Reaper himself, and it becomes a little bit too real. Next up, I've got another comic book by my friend Nick. This one is called Moonframe. This is an adult SFF book, obviously written by Nick Bryan. The illustrations are by Lucas Peveril and letters are by DC Hopkins, and this is all about the moon. Basically, in the future, the moon has become a warehouse where all the data from our constant internet usage is being stored, but there is a problem. There's a computer virus that is threatening the moon, and there are some astronauts that are being sent on the moon to save the internet. Gotta make sure that our cat memes are safe, you know? This one has also got black and white illustrations on the inside, but it's a very different art style. It's much more like almost photorealistic, like using a bunch of different mixed media to like illustrate the story. I find it really interesting, and I think the kind of style of it like really lends itself very well to like a horror-y type of story, as I'm sure it is going to be. So yeah, very interesting. Next, I've got a few books that were sent to me for review from Orbit Books. First up is The Games House by Claire North. This is about a house where games are being played, but it's not just like games of cards and games of luck and games of chance. There is also a higher league of games where we're not just betting for a little money. No, we are playing with the fate of nations. So this seems really intriguing to me. I've never read a Claire North book, even though I own a few, so I'm very curious to check this one out. I've got the intriguingly titled The Girl Who Could Move Shit With Her Mind by Jackson Ford. This says, like Alias meets the X-Files in a grimy LA setting. This is about a girl called Tegan who is telekinetic and can, you know, move shit with her mind, and all she wants to do is have like a chill time of it and just drink beer and watch TV or something. But there has been a murder, and the murder has clearly just been done by somebody who's telekinetic. Like, there's no other way, so she has to figure out who it is so that they can't say that it was her. And in the back it's got some titles. It says this is for fans of John Dies at the End, the Rivers of London series, Stranger Things, Welcome to Night Vale, Scott Pilgrim. So if those are things that you enjoy, you might like this one. Next, I've got Velocity Weapon by Megan O'Keefe. This is an epic sci-fi novel about intergalactic politics and war, featuring a rogue AI. Our main character is Sanda. She was injured in the war when the gunship that she was on exploded, but when she wakes up she finds out that it's several hundreds of years later and she is on an enemy ship, and the AI of that ship tells her that the war has been lost. She is all alone. There is no one left in the universe, except there might be something more to this story. I don't think I need to rehash how much I love any kind of like time travel, person out of time sort of story, so I am looking forward to this one. And finally, from Orbit, I got The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This is a really chunky epic fantasy novel. I'm really excited about this one. The sell sheet says Game of Thrones meets Gladiator in this gripping action-packed epic fantasy debut set in a brutal world of war, dark magic, and dragons. And I am very up for that. It looks really cool. This cover is fantastic. And then finally we come to the end of this haul with 3 books that I picked up today when I went out to the bookstore earlier. I've got Vicious and also Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. Vengeful is the sequel to Vicious, and it is nominated for the BookTube SFF Awards in the Best Fantasy category, so I am reading it for that. But as I hadn't read Vicious either, and my library didn't actually have it, I had to call it in from a different branch, and it was all a big mess, so I decided to just use some points that I had and pick up these 2 from my local bookstore. Hopefully I enjoy these and they don't take me too long to read, given that I need to read them both in the next month in order to judge for the BookTube SFF Awards. But I actually think I might really enjoy this, because from the back of Vicious it actually sounds like it's got some like X-Men, Professor X versus Magneto kind of vibes. Like, you've got two characters, Victor and Eli, who first met as college roommates, and now they are on opposing sides of this, like, war about superpowers. So it sounds like I might really enjoy it, which would be great because I have to read it. And finally, I picked up The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. This is a new edition of the book, and look at how shiny and beautiful it is! The book itself came out a few years back, and I missed it at the time. I haven't read it, but everyone I know absolutely loves this book. This is about Maya, who is the youngest half-goblin son of the Emperor, and so he doesn't think that he's ever going to have to deal with, you know, being involved in ruling the Empire because he's so far down the line of succession, but stuff happens. He becomes the new Goblin Emperor, and he has to learn how to rule. Now, from what I've heard from people that have read and absolutely adored this book, it's all about Maya, like, trying to be a good person as he learns to rule, and it's about, like, him and the people around him helping him, and this kind of, like, found family vibes. So maybe I'm completely wrong with that, but that's what I generally get from people who have read this book. It's definitely one of those books that, like, it came out a few years ago, I didn't pick it up at the time, and it feels like really an oversight and something I want to go back to. And also, it's so pretty! I really can't stop myself looking at it in the viewfinder because it's so nice. So that's it, this was 25 books. I was gonna try and split this video into several shorter book hauls, but then I do have a bunch of videos that I want to get to you about the Hugo Awards and, like, reviewing some of the finalists, so I figured I'd do a big ginormous book haul. I hope this wasn't too long. I hope some people are still watching to the end. Do let me know if you enjoy having, like, way more books into one book haul, or if you would like in future to just see, like, more shorter book haul videos, because I can do it whichever way. It was fun to try this, but that was an exhausting recording session. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this massive book haul. Do let me know in the comments if you have any of these, if any of these sound good to you. What is the last book that you picked up, and what is the next book that you are really excited to read? Let me know down below. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check out a previous video on screen right now. And if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button that's on my face for a new video from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.